We're in Aleppo's old city, here by its historic, iconic citadel, and it's really surreal being in Syria's second city, just days after that lightning offensive by rebel forces where they managed to capture the city in a matter of days. And you look around here and it seems like business as usual. Ahmed never left Aleppo, and she says their homes were destroyed. Her children are in Turkey and she hasn't seen them in years. And she's hoping now that the city has changed hands that this means that she could see her children again. وين كنت موجود بهالفترة؟
في مدينة إدلب.
Abdo was in Idlib. He's been there since the start of the war, and this is his first time back to a city.
كلتنا الثقة فيهم.
He says they trust the rebels who are now returning them to their cities, and he says he's not afraid. Syrians have gone through so much, and they're resilient. Just in the last few days, people have painted over this with the colors of the Free Syria flag. And this is something you see around the city where people are trying to remove any signs of the Assad regime. This is the Basil roundabout named after the deceased brother of the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad. And one of the first things that people did when rebel forces took over the city of Aleppo was topple the statue of Basil, a symbol of the Assad regime. This is an area where there were fierce battles with regime forces. And since then, in the past few days, there's been an airstrike that killed many people. You can still see the aftermath of that, the blood on the floor here. And speaking to people in the city, this is what they fear. They fear that there will be more Russian and Syrian regime airstrikes, that they will be back for the city of Aleppo. Hamad, this is your first time back to Aleppo in 10 years?
10 years, yes.
Did you ever imagine this moment possible?
No, actually, no. We have in our imagination that we're gonna come back. Actually, we had a lot of dreams about getting back to Aleppo, but we didn't actually believe that this moment's gonna be true.
But are you worried about what might be coming?
Of course, we all here, all the people here are worried about what's gonna happen, because the air strikes always attacked us.
But you can imagine living here again.
Of course, I love my country. I love my actually all of the Syrian place, the Syrian country, our country. We hope it's gonna be clear from the Assad regime, all the Syria, not just Aleppo.
Speaking to people here, you get this sense of joy and relief to see the regime of Bashar al-Assad gone. But also there's this apprehension, anxiety, fear of what might be coming. People don't really know what to expect from these rebel forces who've taken over Aleppo. But most people that we've spoken to say that their biggest fear is what the regime and its allies are going to do, a real fear of going back to the bloody days of the civil war in Syria. Jumana Karachi, CNN, Aleppo, Syria.
The rebels have seized control of the central Syrian city of Hama, the country's fourth largest and one of huge symbolic significance. Yet the latest stinging defeat for President Bashar al-Assad's increasingly beleaguered regime. After several days of clashes around the city, the rebels, led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, entered Hama Thursday, and the regime forces pulled out. According to a statement from the Syrian army, the pullout was intended to avoid civilian casualties. The rebels took control of an air base, complete with multiple warplanes, and freed inmates in Hama's notorious prison. Hama has long been a hotbed of opposition to the Assad dynasty. It was in Hama in 1982 that Bashar al-Assad's father, then President Hafiz al-Assad, crushed an uprising, killing anywhere between 10 and 25,000 people, according to Amnesty International. Last Friday, the armed opposition quickly seized control of most of Aleppo, Syria's second largest city. Now, the next city on the highway south, Homs, is just 40 kilometers or 25 miles away, a critical crossroad linking the capital Damascus with the Mediterranean coast, home to the Alawite minority, which is the main bedrock of support for the Assad regime. And if that regime was looking for help from its old ally Russia, well, it may be not immediately forthcoming. Thursday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Moscow is monitoring the situation and will decide on military aid depending on how the situation evolves. Hardly a full-throated declaration of support for a friend in need. I'm Ben Wiedemann, CNN, reporting from Rome.
I'm going to turn now to the Middle East, where opposition forces in Syria are making major gains in a stunning setback to the regime of President Bashar al-Assad. Rebels have entered the key city of Hama, forcing really the Syrian army, you can see there, to withdraw. And this new video I want to show you shows the insurgents in Hama freeing what they call, quote, wrongfully detained prisoners. Hama, which is along the main route to Damascus, is both strategic, as well as symbolically, I should say, important. And its capture marks the second major gain for the rebels in a matter of days. Last week, if you remember, they seized Aleppo, that's Syria's second largest city, reigniting the country's civil war. Earlier today, UN Chief Antonio Guterres expressed his concerns about the re-emerging conflict. Have a listen.
I emphasise the urgent need for immediate humanitarian access to all civilians in need and the return to the UN-facilitated political process to end the bloodshed.
العمليات العسكرية الله أكبر والعزة لله الله أكبر إدارة العمليات العسكرية الله أكبر والعزة لله